Right in the middle of our wedding, my husband slapped me in front of everyone after his sister whispered something in his ear. For a second, the entire crowd stood frozen in shock. But I didn't cry or run away. I looked him dead in the eyes, held my head high, and what I did next in front of everyone destroyed him. The champagne flutes trembled on their silver trays, but it wasn't the music. No, it was the sheer force of his hand, connecting with my face, that sent shockwaves through the entire wedding reception. 1 minute, I was a glowing bride. The next, my cheek was on fire, throbbing with a heat that spread like poison water, and I could taste copper in my mouth. My veil, knocked crooked, hung heavy with the weight of the silence that followed. And there he stood, my husband of exactly 47 minutes. Behind him, Veronica, his sister, her red lips curved into the smallest, most venomous smile, her eyes glittering with triumph. I opened my mouth, the silence stretched, taut as a wire. Everyone leaned in, waiting for me to cry, to run, to crumble. But I didn't. Instead, I smiled. And in that moment, I knew I was about to destroy everything he held dear. But before we get to the beautiful, terrible ruin of that day, let me take you back. Let me tell you how we even got here. I met Julian Clark on what felt like the absolute worst day of my life. My mom, my amazing mom, had just passed away from pancreatic cancer. It was swift, merciless, and it left this gaping, raw hole in my universe. I was only 26, standing there in the funeral home parking lot, the air heavy with exhaust, and the smell of freshly cut grass. I just felt like I'd forgotten how to breathe. My black dress, suddenly too tight, was constricting around my ribs. I couldn't go back inside, couldn't bear to hear another well-meaning person tell me she was in a better place, or that time heals all wounds. Because time doesn't heal a damn thing, you know? It just teaches you how to keep walking, even when you're still bleeding internally, how to pretend you're not falling apart. I was leaning against my car, pressing my palms against the hot metal hood, when I heard footsteps crunching on the gravel. You look like you need this more than I do. I looked up. A tall, lean man stood there, dark hair falling across his forehead, his eyes an unusual shade of gray-green, like sea glass. He was holding out a silver flask. I don't drink with strangers, I said, my voice raspy. Good policy. I'm Julian. He took a sip himself, then offered it again. Now we're not strangers. I took it. The whiskey burned going down, but it was a different kind of burn than grief. A cleaner pain, somehow. Who did you lose? I asked. My aunt. You. My mom. He just nodded slowly. There was something in his face, our recognition. Like he understood there were no right words, so he wasn't even going to try to find them. We stood there for a long time, passing the flask back and forth, not talking, just existing in our separate griefs together. That's how it started. That's how he slipped into my life, into the raw, open space my mother's death had left behind. Julian was a real estate developer, successful, ambitious, with that particular brand of confidence that comes from never having been truly broken. His family had money, old money, the kind that whispers rather than shouts. His father owned a massive construction empire. Julian's mother had died when he was young, which he always said made him understand loss. But understanding loss and living inside it are two different things, you know? He courted me the old-fashioned way. Flowers delivered to my office. I was just a junior accountant at a mid-sized firm, nothing glamorous. Dinners at restaurants I couldn't even dream of affording. Weekend trips to cozy bed and breakfasts in Vermont, where we'd make love as rain pattered on the windows, and he'd trace the curve of my spine with his fingertips. You're different, he told me once, his breath warm against my neck. Everyone else just wants something from me. You just want me. And God help me, I believed him. Every single word. He introduced me to his sister, Veronica, after we'd been dating for 6 months. She was 3 years younger than Julian, with the same sharp cheekbones and calculating eyes. But where his gaze held a certain warmth, hers was ice. We met for brunch at some upscale bistro in the city. Veronica arrived 20 minutes late, wearing a white dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent. She kissed Julian on both cheeks, then extended a limp hand towards me. So you're the accountant, she said, not nice to meet you, or I've heard so much about you. Just a flat statement of my profession, delivered with the faintest curl of her lip. That's right, I said, keeping my voice steady. How quaint. She picked up her menu. Julian always did have a thing for strays. Veronica. Julian snapped, his voice holding a clear warning. She just shrugged, signaling the waiter. What? I'm just saying, she's not exactly what we expected. That should have been my first clue. It really should have been. But I was so desperate to be loved, so eager to fill the void my mother had left, that I ignored the glaring warning signs. I told myself Veronica just needed time, that she was protective of her brother, that I could win her over. I was wrong. So wrong about so many things. Julian proposed on the anniversary of my mother's death. He took me back to the funeral home parking lot, the exact spot where we'd met. At first, I thought it was cruel. But then I saw what he'd done. The whole area was transformed. String lights hung from the trees. A violinist stood nearby, playing something soft and haunting. Rose petals covered the ground. And in the center of it all, Julian knelt on one knee, holding a ring that caught the fading sunlight like a captured star. You've made me believe in second chances, he said, his voice cracking with emotion. I want to spend the rest of my life proving that I'm worth the risk you took on me. Marry me, please. I said yes. How could I not? The ring was platinum with a 3-carat diamond. It felt heavy on my finger, weighed down with promise and possibility. We kissed while the violinist played, and I let myself believe that I could have this, that I deserved happiness, that the universe might finally be paying me back for all the pain I'd endured. We set the date for June, 18 months away. Plenty of time to plan the perfect wedding. Veronica insisted on being my maid of honor. We're going to be sisters, she said, squeezing my hand with surprising firmness. We should be close. I wanted to believe her. I really tried. But at every dress fitting, every cake tasting, every vendor meeting, I caught her watching me with those cold eyes. And sometimes, when she thought I wasn't looking, she'd lean over and whisper something to Julian. His expression would darken just slightly before smoothing back into a smile. What does she keep telling you? I asked him once, after a particularly tense meeting with the florist. Nothing important, he said. She's just stressed about her own life. Don't let it bother you. But it did bother me. It burrowed under my skin like a splinter I couldn't quite reach. 3 months before the wedding, I found out I was pregnant. I took the test in the office bathroom, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold the stick steady. 2 pink lines. Unmistakable. I was carrying Julian's child. The timing was terrible. We'd agreed to wait until after the wedding, until we'd been married for at least a year. But here it was, happening anyway. Life refusing to follow our carefully laid plans. I decided to tell him that night over dinner. I'd picked out a little onesie that said, "Worth the wait," and wrapped it in tissue paper. I was nervous, but excited. This was our future, growing inside me. This was proof that something truly good could come from all the pain. I arrived at his apartment early, using the key he'd given me. The lights were off, but I heard voices coming from the bedroom. Julian's voice and another female. My heart stopped. For one terrible moment, I thought, but then I recognized the second voice. Veronica. I crept closer, not meaning to eavesdrop, but unable to help myself. The bedroom door was cracked open. Through the gap, I could see them sitting on the edge of the bed, their backs to me. You have to tell her before the wedding, Veronica was saying. It's not fair to let her walk into this blind. I can't, Julian said. His voice was thick with something. Guilt? Fear? If she finds out, she'll leave. Then maybe she should leave. This is a disaster waiting to happen, and you know it. I love her. Do you? Or do you love the idea of her? The sweet, broken little orphan who worships the ground you walk on. Veronica's voice was pure acid. Because I've done the research, Julian. Her financial history is a mess. She's got credit card debt, student loans, a bankruptcy from when she was 22. That's not who she is now, Veronica. Isn't it? Wake up. She's using you. She saw dollar signs and a way out of her pathetic little life, and she latched on. Just like, don't. Julian's voice cracked like a whip. Don't compare her to Mom. A long silence. Then Veronica's voice, softer now, but even more dangerous. I'm just trying to protect you. You know what happened to Dad after Mom died? How that woman swooped in, played the grieving widow, and walked away with half his fortune. I won't let the same thing happen to you. My hand flew to my mouth, desperate to stifle the gasp, the broken sob bubbling up. Credit card debt? Bankruptcy? Yes, in my early 20s. After everything with Mom, I'd struggled. Who hasn't? But I'd clawed my way out slowly, painfully. And never had I seen Julian as a meal ticket. Never. But then, a cold, insidious doubt began to creep in, a poison gas filling my lungs. Had some unconscious part of me been drawn to his stability? His wealth? The security my life had always lacked? I loved him. I truly did. I loved him for who he was, not what he had. But standing there in the suffocating darkness, listening to them dissect my character, my motives, my very worth, I felt something inside me splinter. Something I hadn't even known was fragile until it shattered. I backed away silently, my feet barely touching the floor. I left that apartment, the tiny onesie still in my purse, unwrapped, the secret of our child now a heavy, unspoken burden. I didn't tell him what I'd overheard. I told myself I was being paranoid, that I'd misunderstood. But the words echoed in my head for weeks. She's using you. Pathetic little life. Just like Mom. The wedding preparations accelerated into a frenzied blur. My morning sickness was getting worse, but I hid it. I smiled through the final fittings, the rehearsal dinner, the endless stream of relatives arriving from out of town. Julian seemed distracted. He worked late more often. He took phone calls in other rooms. Sometimes, I caught him staring at me with an expression I couldn't read, like he was trying to solve a puzzle he didn't understand. Are you happy? I asked him one night, a week before the wedding. We were in bed, the lights off, the city glowing through the windows. He turned to face me, his features obscured by shadow. What kind of question is that? An honest one. Are you happy about us? About getting married. He was quiet for a long time. Too long. I love you, he finally said, which, isn't the same as yes. I wanted to push, to demand real answers, but I was afraid of what I might hear. So I let it go, swallowing the question down with all the other unspoken things between us. Veronica threw me a bridal shower that felt more like an interrogation than a celebration. His aunts and cousins asked pointed questions about my family, my background, my career plans. Someone mentioned that I'd be signing a prenuptial agreement, hadn't I? When I said we hadn't discussed one, the room went silent. Veronica just smiled. Oh, how modern of you both. But her eyes said something else entirely. That night, I asked Julian about the prenup. Veronica mentioned it, I said, carefully. Should we? Do you want me to sign one? He looked uncomfortable. My lawyer mentioned it, but I told him no. I don't want to start our marriage assuming it'll fail. But if it would make you feel more secure. No. His voice was sharp, then softer. I trust you. But did he really? The doubt was a living thing now, coiled in my stomach alongside our growing child. The morning of the wedding was chaos wrapped in silk and lace. My bridesmaids fluttered around me like anxious birds, while a team of stylists worked on my hair and makeup. The dress, an ivory silk gown with a long train and delicate beading, hung on the back of the door like a ghost. I'd woken up nauseous, which was becoming routine. But today, it was worse. I barely made it to the bathroom before throwing up what little breakfast I'd managed to eat. Nerves, one of the bridesmaids said sympathetically. Not nerves. Our baby, making its presence known. I still hadn't told Julian. I kept meaning to, but the moment never felt right. And now it was our wedding day. I'd have to wait until tonight, until we were alone in the honeymoon suite, until everything was official and binding. The ceremony was scheduled for 3 o'clock in the afternoon in the gardens of Julian's family estate, a sprawling property with manicured lawns, ancient oak trees, and a view of the river that looked like something from a painting. 200 guests, an 8-piece orchestra, flowers flown in from Ecuador. It was everything I dreamed of and absolutely nothing I'd wanted. Veronica came to my dressing room an hour before the ceremony. She was already in her maid of honor dress, a deep burgundy that made her skin look like porcelain. "You look beautiful," she said, but the compliment felt hollow. "Thank you." She moved closer, studying my reflection in the mirror. "Can I tell you something?" Sister to sister. My stomach clenched. "Of course." Julian's been through a lot. Our mother's death nearly destroyed our father. He became paranoid, convinced that every woman who showed interest in him just wanted his money. It poisoned him, made him suspicious and cruel. She paused, her eyes meeting mine in the glass. "Julian's terrified of becoming like him. Of being used." "I'm not using him," I said quietly. "I know that. You know that. But Julian," she sighed, "just be patient with him. And understand that I'm only trying to protect my brother. That's what family does." She squeezed my shoulder and left, leaving behind the faint scent of her perfume, something expensive and cold, like winter roses. The music swelled, the doors opened, and I walked down the aisle on the arm of my uncle, my mother's brother, the only family I had left. Julian stood at the altar in a black tuxedo, looking like every dream I'd ever had. The late afternoon sun caught in his hair, turning it bronze. His eyes locked on mine as I approached. And for a moment, just a moment, everything else fell away. This was real. This was happening. We were going to be married. The ceremony was traditional. The officiant spoke about love and commitment and partnership. We exchanged vows, the standard ones, not personal, because Julian had said he wasn't comfortable with public speaking. We exchanged rings. He lifted my veil. "I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride." He kissed me, the guests applauded, and I tasted salt. I didn't know if it was from his tears or mine. We walked back down the aisle together, hand in hand, as the orchestra played and rose petals drifted through the air like snow. People were smiling. Cameras flashed. Everything was perfect. And then we moved to the garden reception. Cocktail hour. The golden light of late afternoon painting everything in amber. Waiters circulating with champagne and hors d'oeuvres. Guests clustering in small groups, laughing, drinking, celebrating. Julian and I stood near the fountain, accepting congratulations. My feet hurt in the heels, but I smiled through it. His hand was on the small of my back, warm and possessive. "Excuse me for a moment," he said, kissing my temple. "I need to speak with my father." He stepped away. I was immediately surrounded by a group of his business associates, asking me about the honeymoon, about where we'd live, about my plans for work after the wedding. I answered automatically, my responses smooth and practiced. But I was watching Julian out of the corner of my eye. He was standing near the edge of the garden, talking with his father. And then Veronica appeared. She touched Julian's elbow, drawing him aside. They moved away from the crowd, toward a cluster of rose bushes. I couldn't hear what she was saying, but I could see her lips moving rapidly. She pulled something from her purse, a piece of paper, folded. She handed it to Julian. He opened it, read it, and I watched his face change. It was like watching ice form over water. Everything in him went cold and hard. His jaw clenched. His hands, those hands that had touched me so gently just hours before, crumpled the paper into a tight ball. He looked up. His eyes found mine across the garden, and there was nothing in them I recognized. He started walking toward me. The crowd parted instinctively. Something in his expression made people step back. My heart was pounding. I didn't know what was happening, but I knew it was bad. I could feel it in my bones, in the way the air pressure seemed to drop, like a storm rolling in. "Julian." My voice came out smaller than I intended. He stopped in front of me, close enough that I could smell the champagne on his breath, see the muscle jumping in his jaw. "Is it true?" His voice was low, dangerous. "Is what true?" "I don't." And then his hand moved. Fast. Brutal. The crack of his palm against my cheek echoed across the garden like a gunshot. Pain exploded through my face. I stumbled sideways, nearly losing my balance. My veil slipped. My vision blurred with tears that were part pain, part shock. The entire reception went silent. I touched my burning cheek, tasted blood, looked up at him, my husband of less than an hour, and saw a stranger staring back at me. How could you? His voice broke. How could you do this to me? I didn't know what he was talking about. My mind was spinning, trying to process what had just happened. He'd hit me. In front of everyone. On our wedding day. Veronica stood behind him, her hand over her mouth, her eyes wide. But there was something else in her expression, something that looked almost like satisfaction. The guests were frozen. 200 people, suspended in shock. And then it clicked. Whatever was on that paper, whatever Veronica had told him, it was a lie. It had to be. She'd been waiting for this moment, orchestrating it, setting me up from the very beginning. The rage that swept through me then was cleaner than anything I'd ever felt. It burned away the pain, the confusion, the hurt. It left only clarity. I straightened. I lifted my chin. I looked my husband dead in the eye. Ask me what you think I did, I said, my voice steady as stone. Say it out loud. In front of everyone. Whatever you're accusing me of, say it. Julian's face twisted. You know what you did. The money. The offshore accounts. You've been stealing from my company for the past year. His voice rose, raw with betrayal. Veronica showed me the evidence. Bank statements, wire transfers, all traced back to you. You've embezzled nearly $500,000. The accusation hung in the air like poison gas. $500,000. Embezzlement. Offshore accounts. I almost laughed. It was so absurd, so obviously fabricated, that for a moment I couldn't comprehend how anyone would believe it. Show me, I said. What? Show me this evidence. Let everyone see it. Julian hesitated. He looked at Veronica, who quickly stepped forward. I don't think this is the place, she started. Show me. I held out my hand. Julian pulled the crumpled paper from his pocket and smoothed it out. It was a printout, bank statements, account numbers, transaction records. My name was highlighted in yellow. Hundreds of transfers, each for several thousand, all funneling into an account in the Cayman Islands. I studied it carefully. The forgery was good. Professional. Someone had spent real time and money creating this. These are fake, I said. Don't. Julian's voice cracked. Don't lie to me anymore. I had my lawyer verify everything. The account exists. The money is real. Your signature is on the transfer authorizations. Then your lawyer is incompetent, I said, looking right at him, or in on it. I turned to face the crowd. Some of them looked away, embarrassed. Others leaned forward, hungry for the drama. I raised my voice so everyone could hear. I have never stolen a single dollar from my husband. I have never opened an offshore account. I have never signed transfer authorizations. This is a fabrication. I turned back to Julian. And I can prove it. How? Veronica's voice was sharp. I smiled at her then, a cold, terrible smile. Because I'm an accountant. And I spent the last 6 months reviewing every single financial document in Julian's company, preparing to merge our finances after the wedding. I know every account, every transaction, every signature. And these, I held up the papers, are not mine. I walked to the nearest table where my maid of honor had left her purse. I pulled out my phone, opened my email, found the folder I'd been building, just in case I ever needed it. These, I said, holding up the phone, are the real financial records of Clark Development. And you know what I found when I was reviewing them? Interesting patterns. Money moving in ways that don't make sense. Payments to shell companies. Invoices for work that was never done. Julian's face had gone pale. What are you talking about? I'm talking about embezzlement. Real embezzlement. Someone has been stealing from your company for years, Julian. And I know who. I looked straight at Veronica. It's you. Veronica laughed. Actually. Laughed. That's insane. Why would I steal from my own family? Because your father cut you off 2 years ago, didn't he? After you blew through your trust fund gambling? Because you have debts that would bury you if they came to light? Because you saw your brother's company as a piggy bank and you knew exactly how to access it without getting caught. I pulled up a spreadsheet on my phone. Until I started looking. Until I noticed that every shell company you created to funnel money traces back to a single law firm. Your boyfriend's law firm, Veronica. The same boyfriend you've been hiding from your family because they'd never approve of you dating someone so far beneath your social class. Her face went white. You're lying. Am I? Want me to show everyone his name? Want me to explain how he helped you create fake vendors, false invoices, dummy corporations? How you've stolen over $5 million in the past 5 years alone? The crowd gasped. Julian staggered backward like I'd hit him. That's impossible, he said. Veronica would never. She would. Yes. And she's been terrified that I'd discover it. That's why she's been poisoning you against me from the beginning. That's why she fabricated this evidence tonight. She was hoping you'd divorce me immediately, before I could finish my audit. Before I could expose her. I turned to Veronica. She was shaking now, her perfect composure finally cracking. You almost got away with it. You're clever. The accounts are well hidden. But you made one mistake. You used the same routing number for multiple transfers. Once I spotted the pattern, the rest unraveled fast. Julian was staring at his sister like he'd never seen her before. Veronica, she whispered. She's lying. But her voice was weak now. Julian, you can't believe her. She's just trying to deflect. Prove it, I said. Let's call the police right now. Let them investigate. Let's see whose accounts hold up under scrutiny. Mine or yours? Silence. Long and terrible. Then Veronica's face did something strange. The fear vanished. Her expression went smooth and cold as glass. You stupid little bitch, she said softly. You think you've won? I think the truth is going to come out one way or another. The truth. She laughed, a sound like breaking glass. The truth is that Julian never loved you. I made sure of that. Every doubt I planted, every suspicion I nurtured, it was all real. Deep down, he never trusted you. He never believed you loved him for who he was. She turned to her brother. Tell her. Tell her how many nights you stayed awake wondering if she was using you. Tell her about the private investigator you hired to dig into her past. Julian's face confirmed it. He'd actually hired someone to investigate me. Something inside me, finally, irrevocably, broke. You hired a private investigator? My voice was flat. You married me while believing I might be a con artist? I needed to be sure. You didn't trust me. The words came out hollow. Not ever. Not once. I wanted to. I tried. You hit me. I touched my still burning cheek. In front of 200 people. You struck me without asking questions. Without giving me a chance to defend myself. You believed her over me. Shame finally crossed his features. But it was too late. Much, much too late. I took a breath, made my decision. I want you to know something, I said, my voice carrying across the silent garden. I'm pregnant. 8 weeks. I found out 3 months ago, and I didn't tell you because I overheard you and Veronica discussing how I was just using you for your money. I was waiting for the right moment, hoping it would prove to you that my love was real. I pulled the small, wrapped package from my purse, the onesie I'd been carrying for months. I threw it at his feet. Congratulations. You're going to be a father with a woman you don't trust, who you physically assaulted in front of everyone you know, on what was supposed to be the happiest day of our lives. The gasps from the crowd were audible now. Phones were out, recording everything. Julian's face had gone gray. You're pregnant? I was going to tell you tonight. I had it all planned. But now I looked at him, really looked at him, at the man I'd given 3 years of my life to, and felt nothing but cold, clean rage. Now, I'm going to walk away. I'm going to divorce you before the ink on our marriage certificate is dry. And I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of man you are. The kind who believes lies over the woman carrying his child. The kind who solves problems with violence. I turned to the crowd. Thank you all for coming. I'm sorry you had to witness this, but I'm glad you did. Because now you all know the truth about the Clark family. About what happens behind the gates of their estate. About the rot beneath the money and the power and the perfect image. I started walking. My feet hurt. My face throbbed. My heart felt like it was tearing open. Behind me, I heard Julian call my name. Wait. Please. We can fix this. We can. I didn't turn around. I just kept walking. Out of the garden, through the estate, toward the front gates where I knew my uncle was waiting with the car. Behind me, chaos erupted, shouting, Veronica's voice rising in denial, Julian's father demanding explanations. Guests whispering, phones buzzing, the story already spreading like wildfire. I didn't care. I was done. Finished. The wedding dress was ruined anyway. The story went viral by midnight. Videos of the slap, videos of my accusation, videos of me walking away, the train of my wedding dress dragging through the grass, my head held high. By morning, I was famous. Not the kind of famous anyone wants to be, but famous nonetheless. The slapped bride. The wedding revenge. The accountant who destroyed a dynasty. The news picked it up. Social media exploded. Think pieces appeared about domestic violence, about wealth and power, about the dangers of marrying into money. Julian tried to call. I blocked his number. He sent emails. I deleted them unread. He showed up at my apartment. I called the police. His lawyer sent divorce papers within a week. I signed them gladly. But I also hired my own lawyer, a good one, the kind who smelled blood in the water. We went after everything. The community property, the assets accumulated during our brief marriage, compensation for emotional distress. And we went after Veronica. The audit I'd started proved everything. The police got involved, federal investigators. It was bigger than anyone had realized. Over $5 million stolen across 7 years, funneled through a network of fake companies and offshore accounts. Her boyfriend was arrested. Julian's company nearly collapsed under the weight of the scandal. His father had a stress-induced heart attack. The family name, so carefully cultivated, so precious to them, was destroyed. I felt nothing watching it burn. No satisfaction, no regret. Just a hollow kind of tiredness. I moved across the country to California. San Diego, where the weather was always perfect and no one knew my face. I had the baby, a girl. She had Julian's eyes and my mother's chin, and a fierce scream that made the nurses laugh. I named her Grace, after my mother. Julian tried to establish visitation rights. My lawyer fought him. The video of the slap was shown in family court. The judge's expression was carved from ice. You struck your pregnant wife in public, she said. You will have supervised visitation only, pending completion of anger management courses and family counseling. And you will pay child support. Substantial child support. He left the courtroom looking like a ghost. I didn't feel victorious. I felt sad. Sad for what could have been. Sad for Grace, who would grow up with a father who'd never really be present. Sad for the girl I'd been. The one who thought love could heal all wounds. But I built a life anyway. I started my own accounting firm, specializing in forensic audits. Turns out there's good money in exposing embezzlers and financial fraud. Who knew? Grace grew. She learned to smile, to laugh, to crawl. She filled the apartment with noise and chaos and love. My uncle helped. Some friends from my old life reached out, offering support. I wasn't alone. And slowly, carefully, I learned to be happy again. Not the explosive, desperate happiness I'd felt with Julian. Something quieter, steadier. I'm in my office when the call comes. An unknown number. I almost don't answer. Hello. It's me, Julian's voice, older somehow. Tired. I should hang up, but curiosity holds me on the line. What do you want? I wanted you to know. Veronica was sentenced today. 15 years federal prison. I know. I read about it. I also wanted to say. He paused. I could hear him breathing, gathering courage. I'm sorry. For everything. You were right about all of it. I didn't trust you. I let her poison me against you. And I hit you. God, I hit you. I hate myself for that every single day. Good. Another pause. How's Grace? She's perfect. And you'll see her next month for your supervised visit. Right? Yes. He cleared his throat. Are you happy? I looked around my office. At the diplomas on the wall. The photos of Grace on my desk. The case files stacked neatly in the corner. At the life I'd built from ashes and rage and sheer stubborn will. Yes, I said. I am. Good. That's good. His voice cracked. I really did love you, you know. I just didn't know how to trust it. I know. If I could go back. But you can't. None of us can. We just have to live with what we've done. Silence, then quietly. Goodbye. Goodbye, Julian. I hung up. looked at Grace's photo. She was grinning at the camera, ice cream smeared across her face. Pure joy radiating from every pixel. She would never see me crumble the way I almost had. She would grow up knowing that her mother had stood up, brushed off the ashes, and built something beautiful from the ruins. I picked up my phone again. There was a text from my uncle. Dinner this weekend. Grace has been asking for her favorite pancakes. I smiled and typed back. Wouldn't miss it. Then I returned to the file on my desk. A new case. A woman who suspected her business partner was embezzling. She'd come to my office yesterday, nervous and shaking, asking if I could help. I'd looked at her and seen myself 3 years ago. Lost, betrayed, desperate for someone to believe her. I can help, I'd told her. And I will. People always ask me if I regret it. Walking away from the money, from the lifestyle, from the man I'd loved. The answer is complicated. I don't regret leaving. I don't regret exposing the truth. I don't regret choosing myself and my daughter over a life built on lies and suspicion. But I do grieve. I grieve for the version of us that could have existed if Julian had trusted me. If Veronica hadn't been a viper in designer clothes. If love had been enough to overcome fear and doubt and the poison of old family wounds. I grieve for the girl I was. The one who thought a man could save her from loneliness. Who believed that love was supposed to hurt a little, that it was supposed to require sacrifice and silence and swallowing your truth to make someone else comfortable. I know better now. Love isn't supposed to hurt. Real love, the kind worth having, makes you bigger, not smaller. It gives you room to breathe, to grow, to be wholly yourself. It doesn't demand that you prove yourself over and over. It doesn't keep you up at night wondering if you're good enough, worthy enough, real enough. Julian's love was a cage dressed up as a castle. And the moment I walked out of that garden, wedding dress trailing behind me, face throbbing with pain, that was the moment I became free. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I received a package. No return address. Inside was a letter, handwritten on expensive stationery. I'm writing this from a place you'll never visit. The irony isn't lost on me. I spent years stealing money to maintain a lifestyle I thought I deserved. And now I'm in a cell that costs taxpayers $40,000 a year. I'm not writing to apologize. We both know I'm not sorry for what I did to Julian's company. I'm only sorry I got caught. But I am sorry for what I did to you. You were collateral damage in a war you didn't even know you were fighting. My war against my father's favoritism. My brother's golden voice status. My own inadequacy. You walked into our family believing love was enough. And I made it my mission to prove you were just another gold digger. The truth? I was jealous. You had something I've never had. The ability to love without calculation, to give without keeping score. Julian saw that in you, and it terrified him because it was real. And I couldn't stand watching him have something I knew I'd never find. So, I destroyed it. I destroyed you. I destroyed him. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I wanted you to know that you were right about everything. Every accusation, every ugly truth you threw in my face that day. And I wanted you to know something else. You won. Not because you exposed me. Not because you walked away. But because you survived. Because you're raising my niece somewhere, building a life, being happy. That's the thing I can't forgive you for. Not that you ruined us, but that you didn't let us ruin you. I read the letter 3 times. Then I burned it in the sink, watching the expensive paper curl and blacken and turn to ash. Grace was napping in the next room. Through the window, I could see the ocean, endless and blue, and indifferent to human drama. I thought about writing back, about telling Veronica that she was wrong, that they had ruined me in ways I was still discovering. That some nights I woke up gasping, dreaming of that moment when Julian's hand connected with my face. That I flinched when men raised their voices. That I questioned every kindness, looking for the trap beneath it. But I didn't write back. Because the truth was more complicated than either victory or defeat. They had broken something in me. But I had rebuilt myself from the pieces. And the new version was stronger, harder, less willing to bend, less willing to believe that love required me to shrink. Maybe that was winning. Or maybe it was just survival. Either way, I was here. I was standing. I was whole enough. And that would have to be enough. Grace was 3 years old when Julian showed up at my door. Not the broken man who'd called me that day. Not the ghost who showed up for supervised visits with our daughter, barely able to meet my eyes. This was someone different. Older. Gray around the temples. But there was something in his face, a stillness that hadn't been there before. "I know I shouldn't be here," he said. "But I needed to give you this." He held out an envelope, thick, official-looking. I didn't take it. "What is it?" "Veronica died 2 weeks ago. Lung cancer." It was fast. I felt nothing. No grief, no satisfaction, just a distant acknowledgement of information received. "Why are you telling me?" "Because she left something for you. For Grace." He pushed the envelope toward me. "Please, just take it." I took it. Inside was a legal document. A trust fund. $2 million placed in Grace's name. Inaccessible until she turned 25. "For the girl I'll never meet," the attached note read. "So she'll never have to marry for security. So she'll never have to wonder if she's worthy of love without strings. So she can be what I never was, free. Your aunt who loved you in the only way she knew how. From a distance. With money. Making sure you'd never need to become me." I stared at the document for a long time. Julian stood on my doorstep, waiting. "She spent the last year of her life setting this up," he said quietly. "She wanted to make sure it couldn't be contested. That it would be airtight." She said. He swallowed hard. "She said it was the only good thing she'd ever done. It doesn't change anything." "I know. It doesn't make her a good person." "I know that, too. But Grace will have options. Security. A foundation." I looked up at him. "Thank you for bringing this." He nodded. Started to turn away, then stopped. "I'm in therapy. Real therapy, not the court-mandated kind. I'm working on," he gestured helplessly, "everything. The anger. The trust issues. The damage my family did to me, and I did to you. I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know. Good. And I wanted you to know that you were the best thing that ever happened to me. Even though I destroyed it. Even though I didn't deserve it." His eyes were wet. "You and Grace, you're the only real things I ever had. Julian, I'm not trying to win you back. I know that's impossible. I just needed to say it. Once. Out loud." He stepped back. "Take care of yourself. Both of you." He walked away, down the path to his car, and drove away. I stood there, holding $2 million in a trust fund, created by a dead woman who'd hated me, and loved me, and destroyed me, and in the end, tried to save my daughter from her own legacy. Grace called from inside. "Mama, come see." I closed the door, locked it, put the envelope in my desk drawer, and I went to see what my daughter had built with her blocks. Something precarious and colorful and held together with the absolute certainty that only a 3-year-old possesses. "Look," she said proudly. "It's a castle. It's beautiful, baby, and nothing can knock it down because I made it strong." I kissed the top of her head. "That's right. You made it strong. And that's all that matters. You're strong." Grace grows. She's 7 now. Then 10. Then 13. She asks questions about her father, about the wedding day she's heard whispered about but never fully understood. I tell her the truth. Age-appropriate versions at first, then more detail as she gets older. I show her the video. Yes, it's still out there, immortal in the way internet infamy always is. I let her see the moment her father struck me. The moment I stood tall. The moment I walked away. "Were you scared?" she asks. "Terrified. But you did it anyway." "Yes." "Why?" I think about this. About how to distill years of pain and growth and hard-won wisdom into something a 13-year-old can understand. Because staying would have taught you the wrong lesson. It would have taught you that love means accepting cruelty. That marriage means silence. That being hit is something you forgive and forget and pretend didn't happen. I take her hand. "I wanted you to grow up knowing that you're worth more than that. That we're both worth more." She's quiet for a long time. "Then, did you love him?" "Yes. Very much." "Do you still?" "No. I love who I thought he was. But that person never really existed. The real Julian was too damaged, too afraid, too poisoned by his family to be the partner I needed." I squeezed her hand. "But I got you. And you're real." You're the best thing that came from all of it. She leans her head on my shoulder. I'm glad you walked away. Me too, baby. Me too. Julian remarried eventually. A quiet woman, a therapist, actually. Someone who understood his damage and chose to love him anyway. They had a son. He sent me a photo. I texted back, congratulations, and meant it. My uncle passed away when Grace was 12. We mourned him together, planting a tree in his memory, telling stories about his terrible jokes and his fierce love. Grace gave the eulogy at his funeral, poised and brave and heartbreaking. I dated occasionally. Nothing serious. I wasn't sure I wanted serious. I'd learned to be happy alone with Grace, with the life we'd built. Adding someone else felt risky, unnecessary. But there was a man eventually. A teacher at Grace's school. Kind eyes, patient. He'd been through his own divorce, raised his own kids, understood that some doors inside me would always be locked. I'm not looking to save you, he told me on our third date. You're not broken. You're just careful, and that's okay. We took it slow. Very slow. Grace graduated high school before I let him move in. But it worked. It was good. It was real. Not passionate like Julian. Not consuming. But steady. Built on truth instead of fantasy. And that, I learned, was its own kind of love story. People still recognize me sometimes. The video has been viewed millions of times. The Slapped Bride is a cautionary tale, a revenge fantasy, a symbol of female empowerment, or everything wrong with cancel culture. Depending on who's talking. I don't care anymore. Let them project whatever they need onto that moment. Let them turn it into a meme, a think piece, a case study. I know what it really was. The end of one story and the beginning of another. The first story was about a girl who thought love meant sacrifice. Who believed that if she was just good enough, pure enough, loving enough, she could heal a damaged man and build a perfect life from the ruins of her grief. The second story is about a woman who knows better. Who understands that you can't love someone into wholeness. That trust is the foundation of everything. That violence, even once, even in public, even with an apology, is never acceptable. That walking away is sometimes the bravest thing you can do. My daughter is applying to colleges now. She wants to study law, fight for domestic violence survivors. She says I inspired her, but I think she's just braver than I ever was. She didn't have to learn strength from breaking. She was born into it, raised in it, breathing it like air. The trust fund Veronica left will pay for her education. The life insurance from my uncle will supplement it. And the business I built, the accounting firm that specializes in exposing financial abusers, is thriving. I've helped dozens of women escape relationships built on economic control. I've testified in court. I've frozen assets, found hidden money, proved the patterns of theft and manipulation that keep victims trapped. I turn my nightmare into my life's work. And every time I help someone escape, every time I watch recognition dawn in a client's eyes as they realize they're not crazy, they're not imagining things, they're being systematically robbed and gaslit, every time that happens, I think about that moment in the garden. The moment Julian's hand connected with my face. The moment I decided not to crumble. The moment I looked at him, at Veronica, at the 200 guests, and chose myself. That moment changed everything. Not because it made me stronger, I was always strong, but because it showed me that I was allowed to use that strength. That I didn't have to shrink. That I could stand in the wreckage of my dreams and say, this is not acceptable. I am worth more. I deserve better. And then walk toward the life that proved it. So yes, my husband slapped me in the middle of our wedding. And what I did next, standing tall, speaking truth, walking away, rebuilding, surviving, thriving, didn't just ruin him. It saved me. And in the end, that was always the more important story.